Hi there, Tara here with Quilts Plus Love. Today I've got my machine set up and I'm going to show you how to free motion quilt on your domestic sewing machine. This is a continuation of our series of how to quilt your quilt. There's really 5 ways to quilt your quilt. Check out the entire series. I'll link to that below and there will be cards popping up above, of course, too. Today we're going to talk about how you free motion quilt. So how you're using your domestic machine to do swirls and flowers or pebbles, a general meander. For this tutorial, you can see, of course, that I've switched over to a different machine. Typically, I piece on a small Singer, and it's I don't know, I can show it to you, but I'm using my Baby Lock today. This is the Baby Lock Jazz. It has a 12-inch harp space, or a 12-inch throat, rather. So that's the distance between the needle and the edge of your housing. So I have a lot more space here to maneuver my quilt tops around. I have already started with a little bit of a practice piece to get all of my tension dials set the way that I want them to work. There will be a little bit of maneuvering the first time that you change over to free motion quilting with your domestic sewing machine. So grab a practice piece. You'll want to adjust any thread tension issues. So if you have it popping up or eyelashing underneath, you'll want to see that. You're also going to want to drop your feed dogs. So the feed dogs are the teeth that run right underneath your needle that pull the fabric through your presser foot. You're going to want to drop those so they're completely out of the way. If you don't have the option to drop it, just put a little, like a post-it note and tape it down. That way the feed dogs can't grab at your fabric. And then of course you do want this darning foot. So you can use a darning foot or an open-toed embroidery foot. I have seen hopping foots for free motion quilting. Whatever works with your machine is going to be what you want to use. But the idea with the darning foot is that it's going to put pressure on your quilt sandwich, but it's not actually doing any movement on the quilt top. That bit of pressure is going to allow your needle to make an appropriate stitch. When it goes down into the fabric, it's going to make that appropriate stitch. But your presser foot really isn't doing anything else for you. Contrast that with the walking foot that I showed you in our straight line quilting video that actually fed the material through your machine. So all of the movement of what's happening underneath your needle is whatever you are doing with your quilt sandwich. So there's nothing moving your fabric but you. I encourage you to take a little time, practice moving your hands in whatever pattern that you wish to create on your quilt top and timing that with the speed that you press down on your presser foot or on your foot pedal. So if you are going a little too slow, you're going to have really long stitch lengths. If you're going a little too fast, you might have some bunching, some knots appearing on the top of your quilt. Either way, practice is going to solve that for you. So just keep practicing and let's get this machine set up. I'm going to grab our practice project from a little bit earlier that we did our straight line quilting on. I'm going to grab that practice project, start you from the very beginning, and we'll just do one quick little flower for you. That way you can see this process. Okay, so here's a look at the machine that I have set up before I put our practice piece in. You can see my feed dogs are dropped down completely. There is a foot, and there's quite a bit of movement in a darning foot if you've ever used one before. They're really easy to work with. You don't have to maneuver them a whole bunch. So I always use gloves when I free motion quilt. They help a lot with grip on the fabric because your fabric, if it's really high quality, should be nice and smooth and soft. Sorry, you can see that probably these bad boys need washed. I used to do this quite a bit. So the first thing I'm going to do, okay, we've got nice long thread tails. I'm going to lift my darning foot and slide my fabric under there, slide my sandwich under there. I'm going to drop my presser foot. And of course, I'm doing everything on this side so you can see. I want you to know that normally I would be a little bit more in there when I do this. I'm going to use my turning wheel, use my gear wheel to drop my needle one time, pull it up. The reason why I want to do that is because I want the bottom thread, I want my bobbin thread to come to the top. So now what I'm going to do is lift my presser foot and slide my work off to the side. I'm going to pull it just slightly and I'm going to get that bobbin thread up. because I don't want it to bunch up and cause little knots or get woven into the design on the underside. I want to be able to tie it off and bury it cleanly later. All right, so my work is back in place. My needle is positioned directly over where my bobbin thread came up, and I have dropped my presser foot back down. I always, and this might just be a habit, but I like to start with my needle down. That just gives me a little bit of an extra break. And then I position my hands 10 and 2, just like you're driving, and I'm going to start very slowly deciding which path I'm gonna take. Now for you today, I'm going to make just a little flower, maybe meander over and do a couple other little things. Free motion quilting is really nice in that you can just flow. So sometimes it takes a little warming up. And you can see here that nothing is moving the material except me, all in the hands. And you just create your little motif, do your little design. If you hit a corner, I like to pause a little bit right there, and then maybe I'll swirl around and do a little something else over here. There are no rules in free motion quilting. You can really do anything you want. And the best part is, as long as you keep similar patterns as you go through, nobody's really gonna notice if you make a little bit of a mistake. Whoop, and there my bobbin thread ran out. Darn. Oh well, I had just enough left to show you. But so what I'll do here then is I'll pull the tension off, slide my work out, give that a little snip. I do like to pull everything to the top of my work whenever I'm doing any quilting on my domestic. And the reason for that is I want to be able to find all of the threads and bury them all at the same time. So you can see there our project, it looks like I just had, maybe just a couple little tension issues. Here again, you would adjust your tension if you see those little spots that bother you. Adjust your tension and then either keep moving. You could pick it if you really wanted to, but in the end, this quilt is going to be really nicely, securely quilted because there's a lot of good stitching on there. And then on the back, you can see, since I pulled that thread to the top, you don't have any drag on your bottom thread, and you can see those flowers really starting to take shape. As you fill this in and you work around it, the quilting is just going to be beautiful, and you won't notice any individual errors. So I highly encourage you give free motion quilting a try.